one of the most interesting subjects in Chinese culture, which has found a great appreciation as a concept in Western culture, is the idea of Gongfu. But what is Gongfu? Mistake the word Kung Fu usually with martial arts. Martial arts in modern China is called Wushu. Wushu means basically the 5 martial arts. Wu means in this case military, and you can also call it the disciplinary arts. Shu is art, like the Dao Shu, the Taoist arts. When we talk about Kung Fu, then if it is not martial arts, then what is it and why is it so important? Well, let me first explain that Kung Fu is a Confucian concept. Confucianism, especially in the Ming Dynasty, but also in the period before the Ming Dynasty, was a spiritual philosophy, you might say, about how the well-being of the state and the people could coincide through personal cultivation. The result of this spiritual cultivation was considered spiritual. If your spiritual cultivation was successful, you have Kung Fu. And it doesn't matter if this is through martial arts, or if this is through cooking, or through walking on the street, or by traffic management, or by sitting behind the desk, or just eating from your nose, or drinking beer. It doesn't really matter. As long as it becomes methodical, it can lead to spiritual progress, and as a result of the spiritual progress, a form of enlightenment can be achieved. And this enlightenment, according to the rule, the Confucians, is a sign of spiritual progress and suitability for governance. Today, in relationship to Kung Fu, I would like to talk to you about the Zhongzhen school. The Zhongzhen school is a school of Confucians which are, to be quite frank, maybe a little bit liberal in respect to the idea that people have about Confucianism. And you can also say that they had a high influence on neo-daoism. From the Ming Dynasty onward, Taoism was not the Taoism from before. There was a merger between Confucianism and Taoism in the Ming Dynasty, which already started in the Song Dynasty. And this merger did lead to the formation of neo-Confucianism and neo-Daoism. And anybody who talks to you about Taoism as an ancient art forgets for convenience, or he doesn't understand that there was this event happening. And this event was as big to the Chinese culture as the Renaissance was in the West. And it started a little bit earlier, but it took place more or less in the same period of time, and it revolutionized Chinese culture. And the Ming Dynasty is seen as a highlight in Chinese culture, following the highlight of the Han Dynasty. And other dynasties in a lesser degree and they saw it as a continuation of the Han dynasty, and they saw the other dynasties more or less as a deviation, even though great progress was made within the culture and within the philosophy. But in respect to our understanding of Kung Fu, certainly in the modern time, we definitely depend on understanding the Ming dynasty, and the Chunyan school in that sense was a very important part. To explain you about this, I have to talk to you about the ideas of certain thinkers. And the first thinker we talk about today is Wu Yupi. Wu Yupi was the son of an official. This is best how you can say it. And you can also say like Wu Yupi was a scholar that never graduated, so he was never really suitable for the officialdom that his father originally designated him to. But he was very good in his personal cultivation, and he was very meaningful for the development of neo-Confucianism in a way, because he, how can I put that, he created this kind of image about the Confucian, and the Confucian as an immovable person. Very nice example is a story where he was sitting in a boat, and the boat was in the Yangtze River. The Yangtze River is very wild, and the Yangtze River at that point is higher up in the Yangtze River. Is very often used as a metaphor in Tai Chi Chuan, where the waves are so wild that thousands and thousands of people in every year used to drown in that river. And one of the reasons why they built the Three Gorges Dam is to control the Yangtze River, as in the past the archer Yu had controlled the sun, and other people had controlled the waterways also. Yu also controlled the water. When his boat was in peril, he kept sitting very calm, and he was very well dressed, and he kept his dress in the right shape. You see this still in the Taoists. There you see this comes from neo-Confucianism. With neo-Daoists who still want to make sure that their dress under all circumstances is perfect. When I was living in Wudang, because my hair is a little bit chang shang fun, that means it is always a little bit messy, it's the nature of my hair, and my clothing, just hangs around me a little bit uncontrolled, maybe is the best word. This was not exactly what people wanted for me in the monastery. They wanted me to dress perfectly, to have my hair perfectly. And my brothers and my sister always complained about that I wasn't representative for a Taoist. And this comes from this guy, Wu Yupi. Wu Yupi was very well dressed, and at the moment of crisis even, he was sitting very well composed. He didn't move a muscle, he didn't show his feelings. He just sat ready to take action. People asked him afterwards, how is it possible that you can remain so calm? And this sitting and remaining calm is very important in the sense that it is surprising for people, because people usually very easily panic. And this is a very important part of neo-Confucianism in their aim to develop themselves in a spiritual way through their self-cultivation, develop Kung Fu, is that the management of emotions and thoughts became very important within Confucianism. And this is following the Song dynasty, Zhu Si, his thinking, where he said meditation actually is a very important, useful tool for the development of the Confucian doctrine. And he was condemned for that. So later in his life he went to a completely different action, and he started thinking, he started saying things which were in conformity with orthodox Confucianism. Like, for instance, you should first think, then act. Under the influence of Wang Yangming, another Confucian scholar, he said like, no, understanding and thinking on the one hand, and action, they should come together, and when they come together, they produce intelligent action. And this is the principle on which Tai Chi Chuan boxing is based upon. And Wu Yupi, in that sense, was an unorthodox follower of Confucianism. He is recognized, and the whole Chungjian school is recognized as unorthodox. the Chungjen school in that sense is very interesting because it suits maybe better with our Western styles of thinking, why we are looking for Eastern philosophy things and exotic forms of thought to complement our actions. On the question how we could stay so calm, he said, well, I keep myself very calm to be prepared any time for the worst situations. So at any time he tried to control himself so that he would be prepared to deal with the worst situations, that he would not panic and do things blindly and as a result of that lose control over the situation. This is a very important part of Tai Chi Chuan. It's a very important part of Taoism, and it's a very important part of the Chungjen school in Confucianism, neo-confucianism. Because staying prepared is very important. And in our modern life, with a society where continuous change is being advocated as being good, and stability is being advocated as being bad, and everything all the time has to be disrupted to create innovation, it is a most important quality to be able to stay calm. Unfortunately, our modern society all the time wants to disrupt us, because this disruption actually helps commerce to flourish. The commerce needs you to be disrupted, because when you are in need, you make snap decisions, and snap decisions usually lead to buying things that you don't really need. So in that sense, you see Wang Yaoming and Zhu Si both had valid thoughts. You first have to think, and then you have to act. And the other one said, like, no, you have to involve yourself in the situation, and as a result of that, an understanding comes, and your action and the understanding, they come together. Both is very valuable, and you should find, I think at least, you should find the middle way, the middle ground between the two different ways of thinking to be able to deal with life perfectly. And I think that a thinker like Wu Yupi really tried to do that, but he used this idea of Zhu Si to stay focused on the moment and on the situation without losing control over the wholeness of the situation. And this is something that people usually forget. He tried to stay in control of the wholeness of the situation so that you have an understanding of everything that happens, so that you can do the right, the appropriate action. And this is exactly what is at the core of Taoist thought also. So you can see that Confucianism and Taoism are very much intertwined, and in the Ming Dynasty they become so much intertwined that you can't really separate them from each other. And you can really say that modern Taoism, Ming Dynasty Taoism and after, is a Confucian form of Taoism, while Confucianism from the Ming Dynasty and after is a Taoist form of Confucianism. Another thing why Wu Yupi was very interesting, and this is the link to Zhang Sanfen. Zhang Sanfen was also called Sloppy Zhang, because his clothes were always dressed, sloppy and unwashed and wasted, and he seemed to never replace his clothing. And this Wu Yupi also, similarly, he traveled always with old clothing. When he was working, he was wearing his work uniform. But when he was traveling, what was also very interesting about this guy is that he was not only traveling as a plain person when he was traveling, but he also used the land belonging to his family to grow his own vegetables and fruit. So he lived from the labor of his own land. Though even he was part of the elite of China, he at the same time didn't mind being humble enough to take care of his own food. And how did I get actually to talk about Confucianism in that sense? My sister, Chen Li Fang, when we had our first conversation, she said at a certain point, you like, as a foreigner, you like to study Taoism. And how do you think you can study Taoism if you don't study Kongzi? And she offered me all kind of material to study Kongzi, and she managed to wake up my feelings about Confucianism, because I realized, because of what she said, that the kind of Taoism I associated myself with, Wudang Taoism, actually is dependent on Confucianism to be understood. An earlier form of Taoism, in fact, they were failed scholars. So also their original upbringing as a family person, within the family that they lived in, was as a Confucian scholar or would-be scholar. And because they failed in Confucian scholarship, They actually were pursuing careers in Taoism, and as a result of that they became Taoist scholars, or they became medicine people. In the Song dynasty they even made medicine people an official subcategory of Confucian scholarship, and they focused mostly on herbal medicine because herbal medicine is easy to quantify. But they were mostly talking about medicine. They were not really doing medicine, performing medicine. The real Chinese medicine was done by the Taoist doctors who advised you to take good care of your exercise and of your food. And they didn't prescribe herbal medicines to you because it is very often difficult to get the right kind of herbs, even though you might have developed a knowledge about the thousands and thousands of herbs that are suitable for medical purposes. Medicine, as a specialized product, always is expensive. And the more demand there is for a particular kind of medicine, also in China, always used to be very expensive. And a nice example of that is the use of ginseng, rencheng. Rencheng, ginseng, is known as a herb which was taken by the emperor. And the emperor every year awarded a prize, a financial prize, for the best root. And the best route basically determined the price of the rencheng on the street. So the year after, the price of the rencheng on the street was very important, because if a rencheng which looks like a human being gets a price, then the price of the rencheng that year is being settled by the emperor. That means that the quality of the rencheng as a herb actually is not so important, but the looking like a human was important for determining the price. Saying something about Zhuangzi and Wu Yupi. Oh yeah, and then the second person who actually was very interesting to me to in this context was the wife of my boss at the Chaoyang Hospital in Beijing, and her name was Kong, and she was a descendant of the Kong family. He explained to me how the Kong family still keeps the name of the Kong family high and in respect to the teachings of Confucius by offering a very pure form of Confucian upbringing to all the descendants. She was a female, so in that sense it was a very high price for my boss, Mr. Yang, to be married with a descendant of Confucius. It helped to open doors within a very status conscious society as Chinese, which I often call a Dickensian society.